I'm David ben Moshe, and I have with me, as usual, Chaim ben Pesach. I'd like to talk about the, in quotes, freedom flotilla that tried to break the Israeli blockade of Gaza because the poor Gazans are starving. Well, if that's true, why did a picture slip out? Actually, my wife, Ashadina, has a website, and about 2 months ago, she showed pictures put out by the Arabs themselves of marketplaces that were exploding with fruit. Really exploding, more than you see in an American supermarket, more than you see in an American fruit market. Because, you know, in the Middle East they have these outdoor markets. And the bins were piled up like igloos, full of fruit of every color, every description. And then more recently she found similar pictures, I don't know how these pictures are getting out, of markets in Gaza. So the poor Gazans are starving. Meanwhile, the markets are exploding with fruits of every description. I don't know what other crap these people from hell eat, whatever it is, the halal meats. The markets were exploding. So there was no rescue effort by a bunch of ships to bring food in because there's plenty of food there. This was to test the mettle of Israel. This was to goad Israel and to see what America would do, because America is involved with oil spills and health care we don't want and cap and trade, and a Muslim president who probably wasn't even born here against our Constitution. So the Muslims thought this was the time to push. And push they did. Well, Israel shouldn't rely on the United States. Israel shouldn't care about world opinion. And the, in quotes, peace activists grabbed metal pipes and beat the Israeli soldiers as they came down to check the ships out. They threw some Israelis overboard. Finally, the Israelis had a fire on them. Now there's talk of another freedom flotilla with even the head of Turkey on it. And Iran is saying they may try and break the blockade. They know the U.S. is occupied with other things and in pretty bad financial straits, and they're pushing Israel. I just hope, but I doubt, Netanyahu is strong enough to stand up to this. His response was a decent response, but it wouldn't have been the JTF's response. Chaim will give you the JTF response had we been in charge. Chaim?
Well, I actually think Netanyahu's response was pathetic. I think to just board, first of all, to put Israeli soldiers in danger by having them board the ships and make nice with the Hamas terrorists on those ships was an obscenity. We would sink all of those ships and kill everybody on those ships because they are terrorists, they're supporting Islamic terrorism, and they should be treated as terrorist enemies. But of course, there never would have been a flotilla if Chaim ben Pesach were the Prime Minister of Israel. If Chaim ben Pesach were the Prime Minister of Israel, everybody would know what's going to happen to anybody trying to break through illegally and smuggle weapons into Gaza, because that's really what their objective is, to smuggle weapons freely into Gaza.
Well, I'd just like to add, even on this flotilla, if there were no weapons, let's just assume it really was empty ships. It was to check out Israel's response, how far they could push them, and if they show nothing on this flotilla, nothing that's harmful, and maybe on the next one and the next one, eventually they would realize Israel is backing off, not checking as thoroughly, and they would attempt to smuggle weapons in, especially if Pakistan and Iran are involved. They could try to smuggle in a dirty radiological bomb or possibly even a small backpack nuke.
There would never be any flotilla if we were in power. Because if we were in power, they would know that they're going to be killed instantly. And by the way, if there were a few crazies that tried it, we would kill them. In this flotilla, there were 700 people on 6 different ships. That certainly would not happen, because you're not going to find 700 people who are willing to die like that in the middle of the sea. Later, because there were some casualties in that particular confrontation that was provoked by the Arab terrorists, because of that, the second flotilla, in quotes, had only 11 people. So it went from 700 to 11 people. Now, can you imagine if we were in power? If we were in power, nobody would want to come. Nobody would want to come, because we would say in advance, if you come, fine. We're going to feed the sharks. The sharks are hungry in the Mediterranean Sea. We're going to feed the sharks. I feel sorry for the sharks that they have to eat Muslim meat. I don't think halal meat is right
I'm
up
just
to
gonna
their
ask
qualities.
You think it's halal meat?
Halal meat is garbage, so I don't think that they would enjoy eating it because it's garbagey meat. It smells. It's smelly meat, and so I don't think the sharks would like it. But in any event, maybe the sharks are very hungry, and maybe we could feed them Muslim terrorist halal meat. The bottom line is, though, anyone who dares to endanger the life of a single Jew would be killed instantly if we were in power. And everybody would get the message that the state of Israel under a Kahanist government does not bow before the nations of the world or before anyone but God. We believe in God. And if God is on our side, we will win. That is the lesson of history. When Israel stood all alone prior to the 1967 war and ignored world pressure, and the United States threatened Israel, France threatened Israel, the Soviet Union, the UN, everybody threatened Israel and told them not to defend themselves in 1967. Israel ignored everybody and won a spectacular, miraculous, stupendous, breathtaking victory of biblical proportions in only 6 days. Israel quadrupled in size in only 6 days because Israel was willing to tell the Jew haters of the world, go to hell. We don't want you. We don't need you. We're going to do what we have to do. And that is why Israel wins big victories in 1967 and other situations like Entebbe. But the minute Israel worries about so-called world opinion and about appeasing and about what we're going to, and starts calculating, and we're going to lose this and we're going to lose that, and we don't want to anger Barack Hussein Osama, and we don't want to anger his wife. His wife might get angry while she's swinging from the chandeliers in the White House. The minute Israel starts calculating in that manner, the end result is disaster for the Jewish state and the Jewish people. And that is why Israel should not be concerned about what the New York Nazi Times says, or what the Bolshevik news media says, or what people swinging from the chandeliers of the White House say. I mean, look, we are not interested in what they say in between eating bananas. We are not interested in their condemnations. We're not interested in their statements, in their hypocrisy, in their moral double standard. Israel will do what has to be done to survive. The whole Arab world is committed to the extermination of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. The Jews are outnumbered 100 to 1. There are 500 million Arab and Iranian Muslim Nazis in 23 countries, most of them large nations surrounding tiny little pipsqueak Israel, a nation of 5 million Jews. The Jews are outnumbered 100 to 1. The whole world is against the Jews because the Arabs have oil. The world wants the Arab oil, so all the nations of the world are against the Jews. And in that situation, Israel is going to worry about what the world, what this one thinks, what that one thinks. We don't give a damn what anybody thinks. If we were in power, there'd never be a flotilla. They would, and yes, the world will condemn me the way they're condemning Netanyahu. They're condemning Israel anyway. Even when you appease, even when you're on your hands and knees, they're condemning. And they would condemn us too. There's no question about it. But they would respect us. They would respect us because they know that with us, this is the real deal. They would know what we're all about. As the greatest Jewish leader in modern Jewish history, Harav Meir David Kahana Zecher Tzadik Vekadosh Livracha Hashem Yikom Damo, always said, I understand the Arabs, and the Arabs understand me, but neither one of us understand the Jews. He was the only normal Jewish leader we had in this generation, and our movement represents a continuation of normal, biblically based, Torah true Jewish thinking. And let me tell you something. If Israel had leaders like from our movement, if we were running Israel, and Israel stood up and defeated the Muslims, it would set an example for America and for the whole world. We would be doing the biggest favor for America and the whole world. When Israel appeases the Muslim terrorists, it is a disaster for all nations of the world, for all decent people everywhere. You know, prior to the Oslo agreements, when Israel agreed to bring Yasser Arafat and 80,000 Muslim terrorists into the country, prior to those agreements, there was not one Muslim terrorist suicide bombing in Israel. There were terrorist attacks, but no suicide bombers. After Oslo, and after they saw weakness on the part of the Israeli government, thousands of Muslims now have committed suicide bombings, including the suicide bombers on 9/11. The consequences of appeasement, The consequence of appeasement is mass murder and even Holocaust. We will not have any more appeasement if we take power. Join with us. Join with us. And justice will prevail. Remember, God promises us, in the end, the good guys are going to win. In the end, justice and righteousness will flow like a river, and the righteous will prevail against all odds. That will happen. 10 of ye shall chase 1,000 of them, 100 of ye shall put 10,000 of them to flight. Those things will happen in the end. Let's bring that to fruition now, for the sake of Israel, for the sake of America, for the sake of Western civilization. Shalom.
Shalom.